as it's a new year and I'm trying to reinvent myself, one of the things I need to do is discard the old me and find a new me. And I definitely did that over the last holiday. Because one of the things that you may know about me is that I kind of enjoy my anime. I used to be very much an anime-only watcher, where back in the day when One Piece came out, or Naruto came out, or whatever came out, Mob Psycho came out, man, Mob Psycho is like one of the greatest series of all times. But that aside, when all these series would come out, I would just wait for the anime versions to release, because I really, really enjoy just, hearing the voice actors, seeing the moving pictures, seeing the color, because manga does not have any color. For those uncultured swine of you who don't know about that, don't worry, I still love you. However, the thing with manga is that it's a lot speedier. It is very, very dense. Like, you have a lot of interesting story beats, and you can read at your own pace because, it is just a comic. However, it's a comic without colors, and that's something that's been totally fine for me up until now. I don't know if you're familiar with the term manhwa. It kind of sounds like I'm saying manga, but in a different way. But it is not manga in the slightest. Manhwa is actually manga from Korea. And if you think that sounds kind of weird, like someone just made up that word, there we go, look at this. Look at this. This right here is the official manhwa page. And as you see, yes, it is indeed written like that. It is manhwa. And it is, as you can see right here, it is a term for Korean comics and print comics. And these things haven't actually taken up quite a bit in popularity recently. One of the series that you may be somewhat familiar with, if you watch some anime, maybe something like Tower of God. Tower of God right here is an anime series that came out a couple of years ago. And honestly, I really, really enjoyed it. They actually have had, over the last 2 seasons, like I think summer and fall, they had like the second and third season, or like a continuous season of anime releasing, which, like, honestly, it's been kind of great. I quite like the series, and it was also quite popular among the anime community. We also had God of High School, a lot of God going on here. Tower of God, God of High School. This right here was just like a fighting series. Like right here, the premise of this show was that you had to fight your way up a tower, and it was kind of mystical, and yeah, here you had to fight your way in high school tournaments. A lot of fighting. I mean, like, it's kind of like shown in anime. That's just kind of part for the genre. The animation on these was insane, which is kind of like why they were grouped together. But this one was like kind of an okay series, but that was about it. And then you had Solo Leveling, and oh my god, Solo Leveling, dude. It's also got a quite a good game, I've heard. I've not played that yet, but Solo Leveling, basically the premise is that you have this world where all sorts of dungeons pop up, and then you can, as humans, go in, get some sort of rank. It's like how powerful you are, and defeat the dungeons, kind of like you're playing a game, but it's in real life. So that's Solo Leveling, and honestly, it had a pretty strong first season. I think the second season is about to come out as well. So these are the anime series which you may be familiar with, but they're actually based on manhwa, and these manhwa I actually got introduced with the same way that I got introduced to anime manga was that my cousin on Christmas came and sat next to me and said, like, dude, have you heard about manhwa? I was like, what the hell are you talking about? He's like, well, they're like manga, but better. I said, well, I highly doubt they're better. And he's like, well, listen, you know what the big problem is with manga is, like, they're not colored, and you have to kind of read them side to side. But if I'm on my phone, I want to scroll down. That's exactly what manhwa is all about. Manhwa, the variant that I'm talking about is actually called, like, webtoons, and the entire point of them is that, like, there are these comics made for you to read on your smartphone, and honestly, I've been so enjoying them, dude. One of the first manhwa series that I read was this series called Eternally Regressing Knight, which is a very common trope within manhwa. So within anime, one of the things that you may have seen about is the isekai, and the isekai is a genre where basically you take a character, and I don't even need to explain it because you already know about it. If you've seen any anime, it's like basically the Kirito Sword Art Online character that gets placed right into a brand new world. They were a loser in their regular world where they played games and they watched anime, and they go into this new world, and all of a sudden they're the best thing ever because they were a powerful hero that has been summoned or whatever, and now all of a sudden they get to be the most popular character, and then everything becomes good. Manhwa has the same sort of thing, but the difference between them is that it's not isekai. It is not isekai. In fact, it is something different. Same sort of trash tier genre where basically everything is sort of the same, but it's different, so you'll love it the first times. And it's called regressing. Now, if you're wondering about what is regressing is basically, if you've seen Groundhog Day, you know about it. If you've seen ReZero, you know about it. It's basically, if a character dies, they live again. They live again the same thing that they've gone through. It can be like they go back to the start of their lives. It can be that they can go back to a certain save point, or they can go back to the start of the day. This right here is a series about a knight who, whenever he gets killed, wakes up at the morning of the day he got killed. And it kind of sounds like, oh man, it's like save points of ReZero, but then kind of changed around where you know it's at the start of the day and not at a random point in time, which is very mentally scarring. Now, this series right here actually just kind of takes this idea of like the very mentally scarring element of ReZero, and it kind of takes it and be like, what if you just kind of min-max that? So the series about this kind of starts out with this character right here, who's a knight who's not really all that powerful. He dies, and all of a sudden he wakes up the next morning, and he figures like, if I can do that, I can use that to practice. So yeah, as you can see right here, this is kind of like what a manhwa like panel looks like. It doesn't look good on your computer, but it looks great on your mobile phone because like you'll just scroll through this. But yeah, as you see right here, the entire like his entire thing then becomes like, you know, like try and fight like a very strong opponent, and then you know try and beat him. And if you don't like if you can't beat him, then you just say like, hey, you know, you just said like, well, you're going to die tomorrow. And then you wake up the next day, and then you go after your targets. And then after a certain while, you come after a target that you've already fought before, and they'll have a catchphrase that they say like, a persistent lover never. And then he's like, well, never forgets his target. Yes. How did you know? Well, because I've said like, I'll see you again. It's like it is kind of interesting where all of a sudden this entire like regressor thing, which in ReZero kind of gets used as a very mentally scarring, like oh man, this sucks so much to see everyone die, and to die is very painful, that sort of stuff. To see that being used as like some sort of power where all of a sudden like you can train for an entire year within a day, where like it will literally come around where he's died like over I think 200, 300, 400 times at a certain point in time, because like, it's a battle that he can't beat, but he just has to keep going and keep going and keep going. And he slowly but surely very much improves. And then he meets this like opponent the next day who we met the day before, but he doesn't really remember him because it's been over a year since he's actually like seen that person because of the regressing all the time. It's honestly, it's kind of like a fun series to kind of get into this this idea of like the regressor and this like the way that it can be used outside of something like ReZero is what it was, I believe, the very first series that I read. It's not that long, and aside from, you know, this gimmick, I don't think it's like the most insane story that you'll read. Like it has some sort of like fantasy medieval setting sort of thing with some interesting characters, but it doesn't really have the world building of One Piece where you have everything, you know, like the entire world is moving. It's basically everything around the main character moves, and beyond that you don't really know all that much about it. But it doesn't really matter because it's kind of like a fun little gimmick. Speaking of that little gimmick, well, it continues on because the regressor is not just one single thing. It's like basically something that comes around a lot, just like isekai. And one of the things I've also really enjoyed, one of the series I've also really enjoyed, is the Revenger of Baskerville Bloodhound. And the Revenger, or the Revenge, is also something that pretty much is the same trope for regressor. They call it various different things, but the thing of the regressor waking up every single day, that's one type, but this is more the type of like you are at the end of life and you get a chance of doing your life again. So this right here is our main protagonist, who actually at the start dies. I'm sorry about the spoilers, but he does actually die as like an old assassin man who has worked for this like very villainous, very very powerful killer family. And he's been working as an assassin for the head of the family, and then when he completes his job, he gets executed so that the information doesn't get out. And he feels very much betrayed. He feels very much betrayed by the head of the family that he's been serving for years, and he kind of wishes that he could do it all over again to get revenge. And now all of a sudden he wakes up as a baby. Him as a baby, basically. He goes back like all the years to like when he was young, and basically right at the start he's like, well, you know, now that I know what's gonna happen in his life, I'm gonna go ahead and just absolutely min-max the shit out of what I know and try and get revenge on this head of the family. So one of the things that this family does is that they take all the babies that they produce, like they just mass produce babies basically because they want to make some sort of like assassin or war family with very strong children. And one of the things that they had, what they did to do with them, is they throw them in like some sort of powerful river where if you stay submerged in that river, you gain powers and you get stronger. So one of the things that this main character now knows is like, hey, the longer I stay in this, the stronger that I get. So you see that he's just like trying to hold his breath and just stay in there for as long as possible. This right here is the menacing head of the family that killed him in his previous life, but you know, now he's like 40 years younger. And basically, like, using these sort of cheat tricks that he knows about, like, hey, if I stay in here longer, I'll be stronger. If I, if I use my techniques that I've learned, I can be stronger than my peers and get a better position. All of a sudden, he kind of like gains a new position in life and can start influencing the world around him. And the way that he influences the world around him also changes up like how the history unfolds. And honestly, it is in one way, it is kind of a very interesting story as to like how would you redo your life if you'd be able to be given another chance if you had the knowledge that you have right now. On the other hand, it also at a certain point in time kind of turns into kind of like an anime style feel of like, oh yeah, this right here is a schoolboy, like a teenager who's like going through high school. They get a high school arc, but like at the same time there are still more layers to this where I think a big difference between anime and manhwa or manga and manhwa is that the Japanese culture is very much focused around that high school area, whereas the Korean culture is more focused at like 20s to 30s. And this right here just happens to be like a 20 to 30, or I believe even maybe 40-year-old who's now growing up again. And now he's going through that phase. But who knows how long the series will get, because honestly, like it could go on for longer and he could get to that age. But that is something which you are going to find. It is again just kind of like a battle series, which is something that a lot of these series are about. But one that is quite interesting, especially with the entire approach of not using the regressor thing as something like, oh, I'm going to try that every day, but using that as like, hey, now I know what the hell is going to happen. Let's go and like redo my life, which I think is very much indicative of the Korean focus on these series. In Japanese anime and manga, it's very much focused on like do what's right, follow your dreams, and like protect your friends. Like if I go through most of the anime series out there, I think that those are the main themes you'll find. It's like, oh man, my nakama in One Piece, oh my friends in Naruto, right, going after Sasuke, like trying to keep him close, and also just like follow your dreams, go and do what's right, do what feels right. Korean like manhwa feels like a little bit different. As I said, the age is a little bit different. A lot of the main characters are older, and I also feel that the focus is more about like optimizing your life. Is more optimizing your life and caring for other people, but not in the terms of friends, but just making sure that you make their lives better. And I think one of the best series that kind of exemplifies that is this one right here, The Greatest Estate Developer, which I think is possibly one of the best series out there. I really, really enjoy this one. This one is also still ongoing. It's quite long. But this right here is what I would call kind of like the book reader genre. There is other genres within manhwa that I've kind of discovered. I don't know if they're actually like genre names, but I'll just call them different genres because you can kind of grip them together. And one of the things that you have is like the regressor, but another very popular one is kind of the book reader one. And the book reader one is more or less the isekai thing where you have a good gamer in anime that then goes and gets transported in a world where he can use his gaming powers. Here it is sort of the same, but it's more about, hey, I've read a book, and now I get transported into this world of the book, which I already know about, and I'm transported not as myself, but as one of the characters in the book. And that's what happens here as well. A reader, we actually do not know his name, gets teleported into this world of like the greatest estate developer. I don't even know what the world is called, but he gets teleported into this world as one of the worst characters in there. Some like deadbeat son of a noble who just drinks and like causes a ruckus. And he wakes up there and he's like, oh shit, this guy's gonna like die in a couple of months, and he will not have anyone care about him because he's just like a good for nothing son. I need to fix that. And the reason why he needs to fix that is not necessarily because he wants to, do good for the world or he wants to change things around, but he just wants to live a lavish life. He's like, I know about this world. I know what's going to happen. I know what things are going to change. So what I want to do is I want to use my intellect of what I have within this world, and also my intellect from the outside world, and then kind of use that to make myself a good life. So one of the things that you'll find that he'll do is he goes out and he's like, okay, what we're gonna do is we're gonna go and do something good for the world. And we're gonna go and make one of the inventions which I didn't know about, but like underground heating that's very common in Korea. So he goes ahead and builds that, and he goes ahead and kind of like tries to like turn people's opinions of him around, which is kind of hard because he's someone who's only been like causing trouble and like making people scared. So like he just goes ahead, makes this entire thing himself, and then tries to sell that to go and make some money. And his entire point is about making money. He wants to make all the money in the world, not necessarily all the money in the world, but just enough money so he can live comfortably and doesn't have to do a thing. But in the process of doing that, he kind of makes the whole world like good for the people around him, because if you like, the way to get money is to like, service people. And it's like it's a really, really fun way, the way that they work with panels, the way that they work with like character framings and humor, and it's just fantastic. I really, really like this series. It's one of the best ones that I feel is out there. In terms of just like the world building, the overall comedy of it, and just the whole premise. So this right here is, I think, the second manhwa that I read, and I just kind of like just read through this in like a couple of days. It's a couple hundred chapters long, so yeah, I was kind of obsessed by that. Now I think I'll give you one more before we close this off, because I don't want to keep on going for too long. But one more that I'll add in there is another series which you may already be familiar with, because I kind of mentioned it before. But it's another genre which I call the leveling system, and now you probably also know which series I'm talking about. Solo Leveling is a series that's kind of broken through because of the anime adaptation, but it's actually a pretty like good manhwa series as well. One of the most popular manhwa series out there, which has actually been finished. They've actually started with a second spin-off series, but the main series has been finished. Like, I think it's like 200 chapters or something. And honestly, it is pretty damn good. This is what I would call the leveling system, not just because, it's called the solo leveling in the name, but aside from, the regressor and the storyteller, you also have the leveling system kind of like things where, again, the focus is kind of like on optimizing your life, but not necessarily because you have knowledge of the future or because you have died and because of that you can relive again. This is more about, hey, you wake up and now all of a sudden you have some sort of leveling system. You have the main character who starts out as a very weak hunter. He's kind of the weakest hunter out there, which hunter is what they call the people who go into the dungeons that have popped up and who fight for, the treasure that you get from killing the monsters. And he's one of the weakest ones out there. He actually goes in with, kind of the fear for his life, because he can't really fight anything, but he has to go out there for the little bit of money they can make so that he can support his mom, who's been like terminally ill, and support his sister, who's like going for high school. So that's kind of like his thing. He's like in mid-20s. He's kind of like he hasn't made it in life, but the only thing that he has going for him is that he can kind of go into these dungeons as the weakest hunter and carry everyone's backpack and then hopefully get out and earn some money. However, then all of a sudden, like, he goes into a mysterious dungeon, and all of a sudden he wakes up with a message right here, a little leveling system. And it's telling him to go train, like do 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, 100 squats, and run for 10 kilometers. Which you all know will make you the strongest human being alive, but he doesn't know that. And if he does do that, he will get a reward, and if he doesn't do that, he gets punished. And one of the things that you find with these leveling systems is that they give people a very focused set of things to do, and if they do that, they gain experience and level up, very much like a video game. And through that, they just rank up their character, and they can increase their strength stats and their intelligence stats, and that carries over to their actual self. And that makes for a very, very interesting scenario where basically the entire world in which they're in doesn't really grow up, where what you kind of say, everyone kind of stagnates and kind of just stays around the same level. But they're the one character that just continues to grow and grow and grow because they're doing the things that the leveling system tells them to do. And they start looking out for, like, how can I improve myself? What can I do to make myself better? And through that, they kind of become the most OP character in the entire world. Now, is that very, realistic? I wouldn't necessarily say it's really realistic or very much in depth. Again, it's very much like a battle series, just like kind of like Shonen is. However, I do really like the spin of like, hey, what if you, instead of just doing your regular routine, doing your daily life, what if you focus on like, what can I do to make myself better? What can I do in this small little moment to go and improve myself? And even if I can't get a reward straight out of like a leveling system, XP points in the game, maybe I can get that out for different ways. So that's something which I really, really like about Solo Leveling. I think that Solo Leveling as a story itself is pretty cool. It has some more depth behind why the dungeons pop up, what's going on with it, why this guy gets like this system popping up, and there's a whole bunch of like other characters that are like explained or explored as he grows up. So it's the way that I would kind of describe it is it wouldn't have the world building of One Piece, but it's kind of like this. Within One Piece, you go from like one island to the next, and you kind of grow with these characters, and then start like encountering stronger like opponents, stronger like support characters, that sort of stuff. That's also what you kind of have here in this series. It does end at a certain point in time. The ending itself, yeah, it's an ending. I think that a lot of times when it comes to one of these series, like if you were to try and end it, it's going to be really, really tough because there's going to be a whole bunch of threads that you're going to have to resolve, and the way that you resolve it, some people can like it, some people don't. I'm kind of like half and half on this one. It's like there were some good parts about it, and there was also some parts about it that I was like, yeah, I don't know how I feel about this. I don't know how I feel about this at all. One thing that I do really like about this series is because it's kind of like a little bit more mature. This character is in its mid-20s or late 20s. The series doesn't really shy away from like death and destruction. It doesn't really sugarcoat things where, you know, when in anime you can see characters just get completely sliced up, like lose blood all the time, and then they still live and they're totally fine within like 1 or 2 days. Here, if a character dies, they fucking die. So that's quite good. Or maybe not. So yeah, those are a couple of manhwa series. I don't know if you've already read some manhwa, or if you're interested in reading manhwa, or whether this was interesting to you at all. But this is something that I've really been enjoying over the last like month that I've been away, and yeah, I was pleasantly surprised by it.